I sincerely ask you to subscribe to Tales Nameless, as your support is a huge motivation for me to keep telling the scariest horror stories. Chernobyl. A name as haunting as a scar carved deep into the history of mankind. A place that once symbolized progress, now nothing more than desolation, cold, and an eerie silence. They say that place died in 1986. That no one survived. That nothing moves anymore. Only weeds, cracked concrete, and radioactive dust. But what if I told you, something still lingers? Sounds no one dares to trace. Rooms that stay cold, even in the middle of summer. Recurring dreams, of people who've never been there. I went. I saw. I heard. And what I'm about to tell you, is not urban legend. Not a ghost story told at midnight. This is 26 reports, real ones. Captured with my eyes, my ears, and a fear I still can't shake off. Each episode, you'll walk with me into another layer of truth. And with every step, you'll sink deeper into unsolvable mysteries. Science can't explain them. Logic refuses to accept them. Are you ready? Because from this moment on, you're not just watching a journey. You're going back, into the dead zone. Clapperboard Episode 2, Footprints That Belong to No One. Hello everyone. I know, many of you have been waiting for the next part for a week. And to be honest, I couldn't sit still after what happened. In Episode 1, we took you inside the abandoned complex near Pripyat, which was once rumored to be an undisclosed Soviet testing base. That was where our group, me, Anton, Katya and Ilya, first began our journey to explore the forbidden area. However, during the first survey, Ilya, my equipment technician and my closest friend, disappeared without a trace. We searched for 16 hours. No screams. No blood. No clue as to why he left. The only thing left was the recording, a vague voice in Russian. He saw what he shouldn't have. I shared that episode with you, not for views or likes. I shared it, to keep my fear from being all to myself. And you, with thousands of comments, messages of support, told me, I'm not alone. We're facing something real. Today, I've returned, not only to continue searching for Ilya, but also because of a promise: if I start telling, I'll tell it to the end. I still remember the daylight when I stepped out of Building 501. The sky was overcast, the air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves, everything felt artificially normal. But inside me, all sense of security had disappeared. Anton hadn't said a word since leaving the hallway where Ilya disappeared. He just put on his headphones, replaying the last recording over and over again. I noticed his hands shaking slightly as he played back the last part, as if he were trying to find a specific sound, but the more he listened, the more his nerves tensed. And Katya, who was not a believer in unexplainable phenomena, began to record every sound, every change in barometric pressure, every GPS location that the meter detected as unusual. I had never seen her so serious. No more snickering or sighing when talking about ghosts, just a serious expression and eyes that constantly scanned the surroundings. We set up camp 200 meters from the house, on high ground. No one slept. I played back the hallway camera footage for the 10th time. This time I slowed it down to 0.25x. And then I saw it. A detail that no one had noticed. When Ilya turned the corner, right at the point where he lost the signal, a pair of footprints followed him. Not the same footprints. I'd been scanning the area all morning. These were new. Lighter. Smaller. And they started halfway down the hallway, with no starting point. They ran parallel to Ilya. And then stopped, exactly where he'd disappeared. I sat there, my heart pounding. It took me a few seconds to remember to breathe. My hands were shaking so much I knocked over the water bottle next to my laptop. I didn't have time to tell anyone. I was afraid I was being too obsessed with my imagination. But then, Katya spoke from behind me. "You saw it, right?" Her voice was low, but firm. "No doubt. No doubt." Like, she'd seen it too. We returned the next morning, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. Ilya was still missing, and we knew we owed answers. Building 503 was next. The front door was ajar, its hinges rusted but silent. I put my hand on the wall, cold. Not the usual cold, but negative cold. Cold like something is sucking the heat out of your body. Katya stopped dead as soon as she entered. "Stop. Look at your feet." I looked. The floor was dusty, except for a path in the middle of the hallway. Clean as new. None of us had walked there. No tracks of machinery or large animals. The floor had been scrubbed clean, somehow. Katya took pictures, measured the humidity, no signs of water spray or mechanical scratching. The three of us stood there for a few minutes without saying another word, as if afraid that even a sound would be enough to break the tense silence. Anton switched on the vibration detector, the kind we use to detect hidden living creatures. It emitted a steady beep, every 4 seconds, from the 3rd floor. "Continuous movement," he said, very light. Like someone walking back and forth. I didn't want to believe it. Rats? Or wildcats? Katya shook her head. There are no large animals within a 10 kilometers radius. Only humans. The words hit me right in the stomach. From now on, everything we faced could be observing ourselves. Room 305 was at the end of the 3rd floor hallway. The door was unlocked, slightly open, as if someone had just entered. The inside was bare, peeling walls, a broken mirror propped up against the window, and right in the middle of the floor, child's footprints. They started from the window, where there was no balcony or ladder, and ended in the middle of the room. No turning. No stretching. Just stopping, as if the child vanished into thin air. Katya bent down to measure the length, about 18 centimeters. That is, that of a child of about 5 or 6 years old. Barefoot. Toenail prints clearly visible in the dust, indicating no shoes were worn. I couldn't breathe. Anton quietly placed the recorder in the middle of the room, activated continuous recording mode, 6 hours, frequency from 2 Hz, 20 kHz. We backed out of the room, no one said anything. That night, when checking the signal from the tent, the recorder picked up footsteps, repeating around the receiver. No voices. No objects. Just walking. And then, at 2:37 a.m., the receiver picked up a sudden frequency. The signal was an irregular waveform, like breathing, right next to the microphone. At 3 a.m., Anton jumped out of his sleeping bag. He shouted, his voice hoarse. "Someone is walking around the camp." I jumped up, grabbed the flashlight and the radio. Katya was ready with the infrared camera. We rushed out. But the forest around the tent, eerily silent. No sound. No wind. No insects. The ground was covered with a thin mist. Then Katya bent down, her hands shaking as she pointed. "Look, near the tent." A row of small footprints, the same barefoot type as in room 305, circled the tent, 3 times in a row. The most horrifying thing, they were still damp, pressed deep into the dewy grass, as if they had been left just a few minutes before. Anton took a picture right away. We compared them with the prints in the building. They were an exact match, length, shape, stride. As if they were the same person, the same thing. My legs went weak. It was no longer a strange sign. It was physical, undeniable evidence, something was actively approaching us. And it knew where we slept. It was moving around, without making a sound. We decided to pull out the equipment, putting all the tools back in our backpacks. But before we left, Anton insisted on going back to the 3rd floor, to get the recorder. Despite my protests, he went. Katya went with him. I stayed alone to keep the equipment. 10 minutes later, the radio started to crackle. "Bzzz. Sasha. Sasha, can you hear me?" It was Katya. "We're coming back, but Anton is a little strange. He said someone talked to you in the room." I pressed the button. "Stop. Don't say anything. Return to the camp now." I had never heard my voice sound so determined. Katya didn't answer again. About 3 minutes later, they returned. Anton said nothing. Eyes straight ahead. Hand holding the tape recorder. I quickly grabbed it and turned it on playback. There was nothing but footsteps and the wind. But at the end, about 15 seconds before they took the tape, there was a very small whisper, almost like a draft. "We were here before." I shivered. We decided to leave the area early the next morning. As the sun rose above the eastern woods, we hurried out of the 500 complex. I looked back once. Building 503 stood silently, its empty windows like black eyes watching our every move. We returned to the field base, near an old checkpoint. There, I copied all the data to a secondary hard drive, sending it to the server in Kiev, in case the equipment failed. Katya wrote down the entire observation log, and Anton, he was still quiet, less talkative than usual. A few days later, when reviewing the footage from the night drone that we had forgotten to check earlier, I discovered a strange video. At around 2:40 a.m. the day of the incident, the drone had recorded a low, small black figure moving slowly through the backyard of Building 503. The movements were not human. Like something crawling on all fours, but the shape was unclear. And most importantly, it moved from the direction of the forest, where our camp was, back towards the building. Katya watched it, not saying a word. She wrote only one line in her diary. "The footprints don't belong to anyone. But someone is leaving them, for us to remember." Anton left the group 3 days later. He didn't say why. He left only one message. "Ilya isn't missing. She's just gone further than we thought." I knew something was wrong. We weren't anonymous explorers anymore. We had been chosen, or rather, had entered the zone of no return. Next episode, I'll go back alone. I need to understand. I need to face it. And if you're still listening this far, I know I'm not alone. See you in episode 3, Sounds from the Locked Basement. That's where Ilya's last signal came from. Fire. You are watching an exclusive documentary series from Tales Nameless, a real journey, unscripted, unimaginative. If you want to know what happened to Ilya, and what it is, hit subscribe. We won't stop, until we find out the truth.